Good evening. I'd like to call to order the Concord Township Zoning Commission meeting for Tuesday, February 7th, 2023. I'll be filling in for our chairman tonight who was not able to make the meeting. So with that, Heather, could you call the roll, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Lingenfelter.
Here.
Mr. Reppert.
Here.
Mr. Schindler.
Here.
Mr. Terriaco.
Here.
And Mr. Peterson.
Here. First item we have tonight is just the approval of the minutes, and before we make a motion on it, is there any discussion? Hiram, I'll lead off with you.
I was not at the meeting, so I'm gonna
Okay.
abstain.
Any discussion?
No, Mr. Chairman.
I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I second.
Okay, we have a motion, seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
None opposed. Okay.
Abstain.
One abstention.
Abstain.
One abstention, yes. Hiram abstains. Correspondence. Any correspondence, Frank, this month?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Hiram?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Andy?
I did get an email that was sent. I think there was some board members were copied on it. I corrected it because they had your email address wrong, Hiram.
Okay, I got it.
So I changed, I
got
put
it.
the right email and forwarded it to you, so make sure you got a copy, because you were copied on the original, but it was an incorrect email address,
Okay.
so I fixed it and sent it to you. We did get I got an email from a resident. They were talking about a couple of different things that had a auction for their home up on Old Johnny Cake there, right by where Prouty ends. Where Prouty Road ends into Johnny in 84, that house that sits literally right on the T there. They sold that at auction, and evidently somebody had informed them because they had enough acreage and frontage that they could do multiple. They could put in more than one multifamily dwelling, and that was incorrect. It was incorrect information that they had been given, and I guess they were kind of curious as to why they weren't able, because they had the requirements, to put in two multifamily dwellings on the property, why they weren't able to do that. And it was like, because you're in R1 zoning, that's why. And R1 zoning clearly addresses multifamily dwellings, and you're only allowed to have, you can have a duplex, but you can only have one. You can't have more than one. And they were told they could have more than one. And they weren't sure. I don't know who gave them that information, but it was not the correct information. I guess the auctioneer, I think Kiko did the auction. I guess they came to the town hall and asked, and I guess you set them straight, or somebody in zoning set them straight that what the rules and regulations were for their property.
Yeah, the assistant zoning inspector did speak with
Right.
the auctioneer regarding the zoning, and then
Right.
I had a follow-up conversation with the property owner subsequent
Right.
to the email being sent to you guys.
Yeah,
So,
they were kind of taken back by the fact that they felt they had what the requirements to be able to put multiple duplexes on the property, when in fact they couldn't, because they were in R1, and R1 specifically addressed. So what I did was I quoted the section from the zoning text and sent them a copy of it so they could see it, and explain to them what the what the rules and regulations were for their R1 zoning designation. So I said they were not misled. Their initial information was incorrect, and what they were told was actually the right situation. So, but other than that, that's all I got. So,
Ron, anything?
nothing, sir.
I had the same email as Andy, and I did like Andy did, sort of, I pointed them towards the zoning regulations on the website. But I do have a question on that. If somebody had a lot like that, if they were to tear down that house and split that lot, because I think it was over 2 acres, split it into 2 1-acre lots, then they could have a duplex on each one. But they'd have to go through the cost of surveying the land
Right, they'd have to
Yeah.
split the lot.
and tear down the existing
Yeah.
house, which I believe is a century home.
Yeah, it's an old house.
Yeah,
That's
been
been
there
there
a
for
while.
a long time.
Okay. So that's all I had as well. Heather, do we want to talk about the letter about the chickens at this point, or do you want to?
We can.
Well, it was
Yeah,
correspondence,
yeah,
and
yep.
as we all received a letter from a Concord Township resident about the possibility of changing the zoning to allow the raising of chickens on lots of half acre.
And you see
And,
what $10 a dozen does to
right,
people's interest in chickens.
because of egg prices. And, as we discussed that, and now's as good a time as any, what I did with that is I actually took an informal survey. I have 10 friends that live in Concord, and I sent an email to all 10, and I had no bias in it. I said, how would you feel about having chickens on lots less than an acre, specifically half-acre development lots? And everyone responded with, which wasn't a surprise, and it was 10 to nothing against that. And the reasons that were given to me, I kind of jotted down: health concerns. One of my recipients is a lawyer, lives in my neighborhood, and he said, if you wanted chickens in Concord, buy larger property. When you choose a development, you choose the restrictions that go with it. And somebody else noted that the egg prices are pretty much temporary, more likely, and they'll go down. Somebody said, well, if pork goes up or beef goes up, would we add cows and pigs to a half-acre lot? That was one of the comments I got.
Right.
And another person said, well, neighbors wouldn't want chickens being raised next door because of the smell and the noise. And then I did get, we're not farmers. Would coops and pens be properly maintained? Chickens attract coyotes, which is factual, and they tend to wander. They don't respect boundaries, so if they get loose, they go wherever they want to go. So that was my finding. I just concur with the findings, but did anybody else have any comments on that or feeling toward that?
A little bit of homework that I did, spoke to some of my friends that are farmers in the rural communities, and they said, for our type of properties, the half-acre lots, two things that would come up to be against would be the odor and then noise. But you could control that. The amount of chickens that you would have, keep it in a coop, stuff like that, no roosters. And then what do you do with the compost for the odor? There is usually no stagnant odor, but when you disturb it as you move it, then you create the odor. And like you say too, with the coyotes, it would attract the. So that was my homework that I did.
Anybody else?
Well, my neighbor, I brought it up, we had a discussion about it, and their biggest concern was about the rooster. If it has a rooster,
the
they'll be
noise,
out there
yeah.
making so much noise early in the morning, waking everybody up. That was about the only comment I heard.
Hiram, any opinion on it?
Like I mentioned, in our development, we have 2 acres plus or minus. Well, mostly plus, I think. And the one at the top of the street does have chickens. And they have a coop, which is most of the time they're in the coop. But sometimes they're out running around, and like you said, there's no boundaries. They're across the road, and that's hazardous. But I haven't seen any coyotes in the area. Maybe I wish I should. But to see what happens with the chickens. But the coop does have to be maintained because they can get ugly if they put them up haphazard and stuff like that. You have all different colors of wood and this and that. So that would be my objection if somebody had a coop that was not maintained. But luckily, the ones at the top of the street are. So.
And on a half-acre lot, the chicken coop could be much closer to the boundary, of course. And,
Oh yeah,
the chickens
it
be
probably
closer.
would be at the boundary's edge.
Andy, any thoughts?
I think if you're worried about some of those issues, I think what you could do is you could limit the number of chickens that a person could have. Instead of saying you can't have chickens at all, I mean, you could possibly set it up so where instead of, you could put a cap on the number of chickens a person would be allowed to have on a half-acre lot. Instead of saying, like on a multi-acre parcel, maybe you're allowed to have, you could have unlimited number of chickens, right? You could have 10, 15, 20 chicken, whatever. Where maybe you say on a half-acre lot, you're allowed 5. That's it. If you've got a half-acre lot, you're allowed 5 chickens. Now, I would have to think, and I'm certainly not a farmer, but I do have friends that have chickens, that I would think that 5 would be a very manageable number. And it wouldn't be anywhere near as onerous as far as upkeep and maintenance and odor noise and things like 5 chickens isn't going to really cause a bit, but that would be certainly enough chickens to, if you were interested in having eggs, for whatever reason, that was 5 chickens would certainly produce enough eggs that would keep your family an egg. Now, if you want to open up a roadside stand and sell dozens of eggs, 5 chickens probably isn't going to cut it. But if you're really interested in doing it for yourself, for your own family, I would think 4 or 5 chickens would probably be enough to produce enough eggs that you would have fresh eggs for whenever you want them. So yeah, I wouldn't be opposed to it. I mean, but I think it's would be a good term. Transitory, maybe, would be a good term on the chicken prices.
Yeah, I'd say.
We could use, it's been used before. But I think the price, I think it's just like everything else. Right now, this is primarily due to, I guess they had some sort of bird flu, and a lot of the flocks of chickens had to be destroyed.
Yeah, 47 million. I
Yeah,
read.
some crazy number because of that bird flu. So they had to destroy a lot of the chickens, and consequently, that's what's caused the shortage in eggs. And so when the chicken population and chickens breed pretty fast and they grow pretty fast and they start to produce eggs pretty fast. So I would think that probably within 6 months or so, I think we'll see some correction in the market, and the prices of eggs will probably start coming back to some normal level. And I think this is I think what's going on now is just a kind of a knee-jerk reaction. People are seeing all the prices of eggs, and right away it's the first thing they want to do is they want to start raising chickens and have their own eggs. But if the eggs are back down to $2 a dozen again in another 6 months, and what's going to happen to all these chicken coops and people with chickens, it's going to be a novelty that's going to wear off pretty fast. And
Well, he did mention in this memo that they brought it up a year ago to the trustees.
Mm-hmm.
So a year ago, didn't have egg prices so high.
right.
So
Like I said, I think it would be bad. I think instead of just saying no or being completely opposed to it, I would think that maybe if we wanted to do a little bit of research into it, but I would think capping the number of chickens, if you had a half-acre lot, capping the number of chickens you could maintain on a half-acre lot, to cap it to a small number. So, and again, it would be more in consideration for your neighbors, not so much for yourself, but everybody that's in your neighborhood. If you only could have 4 or 5 chickens, then I don't think it would be that big of an intrusion on everything. I mean, people have dogs, people have cats, people have other pets. I mean,
I wouldn't consider a chicken a pet.
no, I wouldn't either. But I mean, when you talk about running around and doing things and being, free range or whatever, I mean,
Well, no, I would be opposed if I lived on a half-acre lot to have a free range.
right? No,
Yeah,
I'm with you.
So they would have to be in a coop.
Right, contained.
Yeah.
I'm with you. I would agree to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm in the same thing. I'm in Summerwood. We're all on half-acre lots, and I think about that all the time. I think, geez, if 4 or 5 houses on the street had chicken coops, that would be a little bit crazy. But,
Well, they probably supply you with eggs then,
right,
too.
and I wouldn't have to worry. Right, I'll just But yeah, I think if you put a limit to the number of chickens on a half-acre lot, then I think that would be a good kind of a meeting place to accommodate people that are interested in having chickens and people that see the downside. And I
Would we
think
have to have a permit?
Now you're getting that's out of my lane. I don't know if there's health issues, health restrictions, health, department orders and things like that go along with raising, because that would be chickens, if I'm not mistaken, are considered livestock, right? Yes, no, maybe so.
So
Or farm animals.
yeah, raising chickens is considered an agricultural use in the
Right.
state of Ohio. Townships are somewhat limited as to how they can regulate agricultural uses, but if the property is located in a platted subdivision or in an area where there were a certain number of lots created under the ORC, and Dave Radacci is my expert here on looking this up for me oftentimes, but we can regulate it. So
Right.
yeah, and right now we do allow agricultural uses such as the raising of chickens and other farm animals on lots where we're allowed to regulate agriculture, whether 1 acre to 5 acres in size. We have some setback requirements. You have to have an enclosure. You have to get a permit for the building or structure that you're going to put up for the animal. So if we were to entertain something, different, I would recommend if you were gonna set up standards that you want them to comply with, that there would be some kind of permit requirement.
Right.
So we could see their plan, make sure they're complying with everything, and
Now,
Yeah, because it could get out of, I would think that's something that could get out of control really fast.
HOAs would have a say too, wouldn't they?
well, and that, I wanted to bring that up too. Yeah, a lot of these new subdivisions, the developers are putting in deed restrictions that do not even allow chickens and farm animals. And if I recall, Stone Ridge, it's not even permitted.
Right.
So even if the township were allowed it, you still have to comply with the private deed restrictions, so the HOAs still have their ability to enforce that.
Right.
And so if you're in neighborhoods that have restrictions and have active HOAs, that wouldn't necessarily be allowed. Just because
Seems to me it would be just one more thing that we'd have to worry about regulating in a development. And I think the right number is 0, personally.
Well, what about the issue with bird flu that killed all these chickens in the first place? How does that affect possibly your own animals that you have yourself? How contagious is that? Is it contagious to human beings, for example?
I don't think it is. I don't think it is, but
That's what I want to check with the health department. Between
Yeah, that's where when you get into health regulations on having things like that, that's not, I wouldn't even be able to
right.
venture a guess how that would work and what kind of, you might be opening up a can of worms that you really don't want to open.
Correct.
I don't know, maybe,
Yeah.
but
so where do we want to take this? I mean,
I mean, I would be happy to do some research, see what some of the surrounding communities are doing regarding chickens on smaller lots than 1 acre or less than 1 acre in size. Kind of take a look at what, and maybe contact some of the planning and zoning officials and see how those codes actually work in their communities, and if they're having issues in neighborhoods,
Enforcement?
or like
How's it
what is it really
enforced?
like? You have it on the books, but how
that's what I said, that you open up a whole other avenue with that. I just, the onus, of course, is going to be on us to enforce it. Not on us, on you.
Yeah.
Right.
When we did a little bit of, Selena and I looked at I had Selena look at a couple adjoining communities already to kind of take a look at it, and some of them allow it as a conditional use if you're on a small lot. Another neighboring community basically just has setbacks, and their police department enforces it kind of under their nuisance type code, if there's smells and things like that. And some have larger lot requirements, 2 acres, so
so if
it's kind of all over the place.
if it's a conditional use, does that mean the people that want to have the chickens have to go to
To the
appeals?
BZA, yeah.
And you've got to plead a good reason for wanting to do that?
Well, you have to prove that you meet all the conditions that they
Yeah.
would have in place to
And
have
the-
the chickens, pretty much.
That you need 4 chickens?
Yeah.
That'd be a
We
tough
didn't look
case.
at the specific requirements yet,
Yeah.
but
I'd like to know more about the health department too.
if the health department has any say in that,
Yeah.
okay, I can look,
Yeah,
I can see.
there would be that.
Yeah, I
I'd be
don't know
interested
that
to
they
know
do,
that.
yeah.
Yeah,
If there are any additional regulations on top of that we would have to,
right.
you just don't want to overburden.
But now what happens now with somebody with a 1 acre lot or a 2 acre lot?
Right, right now.
What
they would-
happens now?
Yeah, if they contact us and ask us about it, they come in and get a permit for the coop. And we just tell them about the setbacks. It's gotta be 70 feet back from the front lot line, 25 feet from side lot and rear lot lines. And then we have like a maximum size that we kind of tie to the accessory building size, which you could see us maybe needing to change our language a little bit on this. So even if we maybe don't open it up to smaller lots, like I think we could clean up the language to reference, we don't even reference specifically chicken coop or a fenced in run area. Maybe we could fix what we already kind of have in place too,
Right.
and possibly allow it on smaller lots. And we've had more than just this one inquiry. I did talk to this resident over in Morley Hills last year about it. And I think we're seeing, I think in other communities we're seeing a trend in a lot of more residential homes wanting to have chickens, backyard chickens. And I don't know if that was coming off COVID and everyone was being home and they have more time to attend to that. And now the latest bird flu stuff. But there's even this weekend, ironically this past weekend, 2 emails asking about chickens. Someone over in Hawthorne Woods was asking, and then another resident over on Girdled. So the one lot on Girdled was over an acre, but it's not in an area where we can regulate agriculture. So I told her to kind of proceed, as you want, because we really can't regulate that. And then the one over in Hawthorne Woods, that lot is in a development in an area where we could regulate agriculture, and it's less than 5 acres, so they would have to comply with all the setback requirements and for the enclosure.
It would seem like the cost of the feed and the chickens and the coop and the permits be cheaper to pay the price for eggs.
Reasons for doing it, yeah. I know, like my brother lives in Brook Park, and he has chickens on his,
Really?
I don't know, quarter-acre lot, maybe
Wow.
smaller. I have no idea.
Wow.
And they did it because they just wanted to raise chickens, and the kids, and having that experience and being close to their food source, and so there's an educational component behind it.
And I could
too.
see some people would keep their coop very clean and neat and orderly, and others would not. And then there'd be complaints from the neighbors about how well the coop was maintained and so
And
forth.
those are
So,
like the-
so we want to just continue this discussion next month, or
I'd be happy to add it on as another work
You wanna do
session.
that?
And
Yep.
do some homework
Sure.
on it. If you
I think it would be a good
like to.
idea.
Yeah.
okay,
Okay.
very good. Anything else for correspondence? I think that's it. Public participation. Dave, you're not public, are you? Okay.
He's here to
Tonight.
participate, though.
Give us your name, and we know who you are, but
Dave Verdacci, Lake County Planning Community Development Director,
yes.
105 Main Street, Painesville. Just came out, used to do this all the time, pre-pandemic. We'd go out, visit the zoning commissions, and just see if you guys need anything from us, answer any questions, just put a face to our name so you would know who we are, and let you guys know you're more than welcome to call us if you have any questions on any zoning issues. We're more than happy to answer them. You don't have to go through Heather. You can call us directly if you wanted to.
Very good. Do you have any opinions on chickens?
That I wouldn't have them in my own yard. My neighbors never have them.
Thank you. It's always good to see you.
Yep. How long you been with the Lake County now? Is in your position? You've been around for a while.
In my position, I've been since 2012, so it's been 11 years, 10 years, almost 11 years. With the county, it's 25 years.
Yeah, that's good for you. Congratulations. We appreciate you coming in to see us.
Thanks,
It's always
Dave.
good to see you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to new business, discussion on zoning commission reserved jurisdiction for the IN9 Group LLC project. Is that our sidewalk? Or is,
That is the project at Old Crow from last month that was
the discussion of the sidewalk and
Yes.
how we're gonna do the language?
Yes, and I think Mr. Peterson was going to
Okay.
give you some information on that.
Yeah, we are still working with IN9 Group and Bruce Brothers to try to work out language that everyone agrees to retain jurisdiction over the sidewalk issue so that it can be brought up in due time.
Okay,
It's still in the works for now.
okay. Are you thinking along the lines of when the zoning commission we'd be the ones that would call for that when the time came?
That's what we're hoping for,
Okay.
so that it would be at the board's discretion. It is sort of a contract negotiation, so we'll need to get Maurice Brothers and IN9 on that page, but that's what we're hoping for.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Counselor. Moving on to old business. First of all, we have a work session to review section 2203, table of uses, automotive and transportation, and so forth. And Heather gave us a handout for that. And if we go to our handout on page 1, the only changes on page 1 were the elimination of a conditional use for gas stations and car washes in the capital district. And on the flip side of that, there's a addition of under general building contractors making manufacturing permitted use in that category under permitted use of general building contractors in manufacturing, which would probably solve our little dilemma about the manufacturing district that we talked about last month. So as we go through our handout, there's some changes to the language here that Heather put in here. Go to page 4, for example, 13-23. She added the word gateway business and B1 restricted retail and scratched out and C capital district. And then item C, change National Fire Protection Association to the Ohio Fire Code. Any discussion on those two changes?
No.
Those
None
are
here.
obviously good. Page 5 then, under car wash. She's added, car washes may include accessory uses such as detailing, drying, and vacuuming areas. And then under 13.24, car washes shall be conditionally permitted in the BX business interchange, GB gateway business, and B1 restricted retail, and then took out and C capital. Okay with those two?
Yes.
So far?
Just a question. What about charging stations maybe for electric cars?
Electric vehicles, yeah.
Because they're going to become more and more prevalent as time goes by. I mean, we're starting to see all kinds of commercials on television now. UPS truck,
Yeah.
they showed the first one for a UPS truck. I noticed, yesterday, going electric. Big monstrous cab, electric, things like that.
We don't even mention charging stations anywhere, do we?
No, and that is a topic that is on our radar from the township's perspective, from zoning. And I've also talked with our fire department and their concerns about EV charging stations. That is something that we are going to have to add some requirements, I think, in our zoning.
And that could be a
make
broad,
sure.
broad topic, because even in
Yeah.
the capital district, you might have
Yep.
charging stations in certain
Yeah.
parking spots.
Yeah.
Any of the retail areas it would apply to.
Yep.
Gas stations might have charging stations.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So, good point. At some point, we'll have to address that.
okay.
Item C then, was that an added, or what did you do on that one, Heather?
When I added the D underneath it, it somehow changed
Oh,
C
okay.
for some reason. That's just,
Okay.
it really shouldn't be read.
So we've added D, any vacuum area shall be shown on the site plan and shall be located as far away from any residential use as practical. Everybody okay with that one?
Yes.
Page 6,
On the vacuum area, it just seems a little open-ended to me. What is as far away from any residential use as practical?
Right.
I mean,
I knew
that
someone-
seems a little squishy, in my opinion. Do we want to be a little more specific than in terms of the
I suppose it would depend on the lot and the layout of the lot. For example, we're going to have vacuum areas at the new car wash.
right?
There are no residential areas around there, so it's not an issue, but if there were, as far as possible, it would be the opposite end of the lot, if possible, something like that.
But why it doesn't say that?
I know,
See, it just says,
As far
it
as
says as
practical,
far
yeah.
away
that's practical.
from any residential use as practical.
Yeah,
I would wonder, Counselor, do you have any input on that? Do you think do you find that to be a little kind of open-ended?
Yes, I do. If you did adopt that, an applicant might have a differing opinion on what's practical
Right.
compared to
That's right.
what the board feels is best. So, although I hate to bring up a problem if I don't have at least some solution to offer.
No, understood.
And I don't know what the a better wording would be to try to keep vacuums away from residential properties.
Right. That wording just kind of,
The concern is noise.
well, yeah, would be,
That's
the
the
noise
concern.
from the vacuums, yeah, that would be probably first and foremost, but just, I think to me, it just seems a little bit open-ended. And I don't know what, I certainly don't have a proposal for what it should be or anything like that, but I just wonder if we should try to maybe button that down a little tighter and just,
Well, we can put a number in there and let it go to BZA if they can't meet it.
This would be a BZA anyway, as far as
Right.
the conditional use. So they could negotiate, what is practical with the BZA.
Right.
Trying to get their use approved. But right now, I'm sorry, I'm trying to look at the zoning map to see
right.
what districts actually back up to an R district
Right.
that this might actually be applicable. Maybe it's something that we don't need.
Right.
But I definitely would like to see them shown on the plans.
Right. Well, yeah, that's what
Yeah.
I think the counselor makes a good point, is what the developer considers to be practical and what a resident might consider to be practical could be, polar opposites. So, what do we do there? And then it becomes to me, it's just too subjective. I would rather see something a little more, a little more tighter.
Or maybe anything butting up to a residential has to have a barrier, like we do on the freeways.
Like a
Because noise
fence.
travels straight, doesn't go over anything, so a barrier would definitely squelch a lot of noise. So if it did be up against a residential area, that we should spell out that a barrier, noise barrier, should be up, isolated.
I could come back with some language
Okay.
about
Yeah, I
something
think,
in
yeah, I'd
that
just like to,
flavor.
and
Yeah,
it's certainly not an indictment on what you've done, Heather, on
Yeah.
that. It's just,
yeah.
I just think that just to me seems a little too broad. I could see this causing a problem.
Indoor commercial recreation facilities may include a restaurant as an accessory use, which would be an addition. Any issues with that?
Not for me.
Not for me.
Probably be more like a snack bar usually, but restaurant's fine.
Yeah, what we were kind of thinking, like when you go to even Roll House and
Right.
Mentor, they have a bar and a restaurant that you can eat while you're there doing all
Right.
the activities. There's these new concepts where you do I don't know if they're new or not, but there's some new users that are doing indoor golf simulations that have a restaurant in there, and so when you think about how indoor commercial recreation is now,
Yeah.
it seems to have that. So I thought it might be appropriate to acknowledge that in the definition.
I think things like Top Golf are almost more restaurant than recreation.
Yeah.
But that's good to add. Any objections to adding that in there, anybody?
No,
Okay.
none.
Nothing on page 9, nor page 10 or 11. Page 12 at the bottom. Just a comment there under safety inspection, adult group homes shall comply with the requirements of the Ohio Fire Code as opposed to National Fire Prevention, which is the same as we said previously in other statements, so no problem there. And that's pretty much everything that we had in those districts. Any discussion further on that? I think all of these changes are good, and
Yeah, I thought we were gonna go through the table and not just the changes that were
that was
proposed.
the table.
Well, I know, but I went through the table to add some stuff.
Oh, well, we did that.
Is that out of bounds?
That's already been done, I think.
No, if you have suggestions on other modifications, I think this would be appropriate for the board to consider your thoughts.
Okay.
Because
yeah.
we went through as staff and kind of was like, okay, we we went through the table of uses as well and looked at what uses were in the districts already, you know, looking at the purpose statements and tried to determine whether or not we thought any changes were necessary.
So
What you have tonight is just what we were recommending. But,
Okay.
I mean, you might have other things you might want to discuss.
Do you have others you'd like to discuss, Byron?
Sure. Brewery, distillery, and winery. I thought it would be good in gateway business and general business.
These, I understand what you're saying. We do allow the microbrewery, micro winery that we looked at last month, and you weren't here. That's why maybe it's not fresh in your head. Because we allow microbrewery, micro distillery, micro winery in the gateway business, the BX, and the B1. So these, the ones you just mentioned, are more of the larger scale, more manufacturing, less of a go in here and have an experience.
Less of a micro.
Correct.
This is
Yes,
a
these are
macro.
larger scale.
Yeah, there's definitely in the definitions and the
Yes.
language of micro brewery, micro winery versus winery brewery. That it's we had these conversations when we talked about putting them into the text.
Yeah,
of the,
yeah.
Remember we talked about thousands of barrels,
Right.
of beer
Right.
and thousands of barrels of wine versus a microbrewery, being down to a much smaller scale. And that's where I think that's why that was kind of done that way.
Okay, so this is not the micro type stuff. This is the big ones.
Yeah, these would
Correct.
be like full scale
Shots
production.
Brewery.
Yeah, it would be something would be more for like a
Okay.
bigger operation.
Okay, on page 2, membership, sports and fitness club in gateway business. And then studios for instruction and special, and also theater and special.
That was with the sports and fitness club was in GB. You wanted to add that into GB too?
GB.
Okay. All right.
And then studios for instruction and special.
Not in GB.
What about GB for that one? Yes, no?
Well, I didn't have it in GB. Could. I mean,
And you'd want that as a permitted or as a conditional?
which one? Studios?
Membership for sports, both of them. Yeah.
All P's.
All P's,
All
so I mean, it would
permitted.
be permitted.
Yeah.
I don't have any problem with that.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I don't see a problem.
And then theater you put in special.
Theater I put in special, and so also studios for instruction.
Okay.
And those are also permitted.
Yeah, as P's.
Don't see a problem there either.
So I just went through the table and
Yeah.
looked at the purpose statements and said, I don't see why we couldn't. That's,
Is the consensus to add those three in then?
Yeah,
Or permitted the membership sports clubs in gateway business, and then add two more uses to the special district, the studios for instruction and the theater?
yeah.
Any objections?
I don't see anything in particular that would throws at me right now that I'd object to.
Let's put them in.
Okay.
Because we're gonna have a public hearing on this anyway, right?
Oh, yeah. We're still in our work
So,
session.
we're
Yeah.
still in our-
At one point, I'm gonna bring everything together that we've already been talking about over all the.
Right.
Yes, and then we'll go through it, and we're almost done going through this list of uses in section 22. We have, basically next month, we can wrap it up. We really just have the other uses and then our accessory uses, which we've kind of already gone through. So I'm thinking maybe for the March meeting, we'll come back with all the track changes, everything that we've been talking about in section 22 and section 13. And then we can get through this and then see where we're at as far as,
Okay.
we might need another month before we recommend or initiate any kind of amendment on that, depending on
Okay.
where we're at with everything, but.
Very good.
Sure.
And then I noted in your memo, it reads, for the second work session, staff is not recommending that the zoning commission rezone, is not recommending the zoning commission rezone the existing manufacturing properties to another district. So your recommendation is not to do that.
And I know last month, you guys had asked me to take a look at if it wasn't BX or B2, then, what other district might it be then? And, it would, after initially looking at BX and B2 and the concerns with potentially increasing the amount of, commercial activity adjacent to the residential there, that wasn't something that we were on board with, and I was recommending maybe we just add a couple uses if we're going to do anything. Then I went back and I looked at that RD2 district that we talked briefly about last month, and looking at the uses that are there, I think there's a lot more potential for negative impacts to residential that exists in that area, and additionally, the minimum lot sizes in the RD2 are quite large. They're 3 acres, and 2 of the 4 lots that are currently zoned M manufacturing are less than that, and 2 specifically are the 2 lots that are currently for sale. So there would be some concerns as well that I already expressed about, possibly rezoning the property while it's in the middle of being sold. If somebody buys it thinking they could continue to do a light manufacturing use there, which would be permitted under the M district or any other use under M, that could present a problem for the township from a legal perspective.
And by
you know,
adding building general contractor, that gives us a little broader.
Right, and if that's something
Yes,
you guys don't want to add, and we don't need to do it, we can really
No,
do
I-
nothing. We can just keep
I
the
think
M
it's
district as
fine.
it is. But it was very challenging to find something that there's no other commercial adjacent to it, so it's hard to just pick a zoning district, some other district. We really went through everything, and just at this point, I couldn't recommend another district. So.
No, I think it's a good recommendation. Does anybody have an objection to that recommendation?
No, she brings up a lot of good points.
Yeah.
And,
I agree, leaving it.
Very good.
yeah.
Yeah, let's leave it like it is then. Okay, the other item we had on the agenda is tabled, and that would be the work session to review plan unit development residential conservation development districts, and that's tabled for later. So with that, we've completed everything on the agenda. Is there anything anybody else wanted to bring up? Anything we need to add for tonight?
Not me, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, seeing nothing else, I'm going to adjourn the meeting. The next meeting will be March 7th, 2023.
That's good.
45 minutes.